Hey, where'd my hat go? Oh, Mankey, you little thief! Give me back my hat! It's mine! I won it at the official Pokemon League Expo. Don't you know how tough it is to get one of those hats? I had to send in about 1 million postcards to win that hat. Oh, let's just listen to the podcast, okay? Hey, I'm Veronica Taylor.
And I'm Rena Taylor.
And this is
The Trainer's Guide. Today's episode,
Primeape Goes Bananas.
Hello, welcome back.
We are at episode 24.
24. I'm channeling my inner singer a la Jessie later in this episode.
She was amazing in this episode.
I know. I feel like this is a little spoiler. Well, not really, but I'm just jumping ahead. But I feel like this was, they were trying some new things with their motto this week.
It suited the animation, I think.
Totally. But it felt like this was them testing out, seeing what worked, seeing what didn't. And so I'm interested to see if every week now, when they do their motto, it'll be different.
I don't know.
I'm not sure, but I like it.
Oh, they were so good. I would say Team Rocket wasn't in this episode enough.
Oh, no, definitely not. I feel like they're not in enough episodes in general.
Well, speaking of that, we had Professor Oak who popped in.
Yes.
Which was pretty amazing because we got to see his house and his kind of yoga, meditation, poetry room.
Yeah, very zen kind of bare room that overlooks a great garden, it looks like.
Well, I think that's what he and Delia share in common, their love of gardening.
Yes, well.
And he also has all those Pokemon to help him garden.
I know. Yeah, we open up on Ash calling Professor Oak and just to check in and see how he's doing, update Oak on his progress. And we find out that, lo and behold, all the other Pokemon trainers, all of Ash's rivals, as Professor Oak calls them, including Gary, have all won 5 badges. And Gary has caught 30 Pokemon already.
It's so sad because Ash was so excited that he had won 4 badges.
I know. Anyway, so Oak kind of just tells him, you have to, in order to be a great trainer, you have to catch a lot of Pokemon. So.
Right, but we also get a little bit of Professor Oak's poetry.
Yes.
And we know that he has tea and cake every afternoon with Krabby.
He and Ash's Krabby have really bonded.
Mm-hmm.
And which I guess is good because we don't hear about Gary's Krabby. Because remember, Gary caught a Krabby that was huge and Ash's was so puny. But it seems like Oak has bonded with Ash's Krabby more than Gary's. So as Brock says later in this episode, I think it's quality over quantity.
Totally true. And the thing is, perhaps it's the trainer, too. The quality comes through in how you train and kind of relate, I guess, to your Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, Professor Oak can find more in common with the Ash's Pokemon, maybe.
And Oak is doing his poetry, and his poem says, "Every day it's cake and tea, just my Pokemon and me."
Exactly. Which is correct grammar, actually. Just me. That's me. Correct.
But it is kind of a fun, we hear a little bit of his musings, stuff he does when he's not in the lab.
Mm-hmm.
And
really fleshing out really who he is. And I bet he makes, didn't he say sometime that he had a housekeeper? Was that somewhere or did I make that up? Well, maybe he makes his own cake.
Yeah, he might. Oh no, you're right, because when they were visiting Bill, I think, and Oak was saying that his housekeeper had left, so he was making beans or something.
That's right.
On in his Bunsen burner type thing.
Right.
So anyway, he has a housekeeper. But who knows if she makes pastries or not.
Yeah, or I think I think he did say she then. We all
I think so.
Imagine
that's true.
That someone comes in and cleans. The interesting thing is that I think we take for granted is that Ash is at a phone booth somewhere out in the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, and so he's discouraged because Oak is basically telling him that he has to be better. And then it pans out and he's just by himself in this basically deserty wasteland.
With the tumbleweed.
With the tumbleweed and a telephone booth. Mm-hmm. A video call telephone booth.
Yeah, because we think, nowadays we have our own cell phones. So you think he didn't have to do much, but he had to find the phone booth.
Yeah.
And he goes back to Misty and Brock quite downtrodden. We only see his hat, not his eyes. He's got the shadow over his eyes. And they are eating.
Oh my gosh. Donuts.
Which is the onigiri.
Yeah, we know now, obviously, that they're eating rice balls, onigiri. And they say donut in this episode, I counted 13 times.
And it was unnecessary.
Everything. You go, oh, my donuts, jelly-filled donuts. My donuts are my specialty. I'll throw a donut at this Pokemon. Oh,
but
donuts.
It's wild because I certainly didn't remember that it was, everyone says, why did they say donuts? And I'm like, I don't think they did that much, but they really did. Yeah. Overboard.
But that to me seems like it, I mean, I'm sure part of it was in the script because the characters are demonstrating those words. Their actions kind of show that. But it feels like to me that part of that had to be a joke. Like it had to be a joke.
I see what you say. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
at least in some way, because it is
funny.
Clearly,
not a donut.
That it had to be on some level. Like, oh, this is funny, and let's see how many times we can say donut in the episode.
Well, I think that's true. It also makes me think about eating donuts, and we've seen so many donut places recently that maybe it was a way to, maybe it's partially funded by the donut industry.
Big donut.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were just in San Diego, and they have a ton of donut shops. Yeah. That was like a huge thing on the maps.
And we didn't have any.
No, we didn't.
Shoot.
But we did have some good ice cream and good food, good fish, fresh fish.
Well, because we were there for the Blue Water Film Festival, which I think this is not, well, Misty is a water Pokemon trainer, but
that's true.
It was the Blue Water Film Festival talks about conservation and the environment, a lot about the ocean, and there were films from all over the world. You were doing live painting, which was pretty amazing, inspired by the ocean. And the thing that was wonderful about that and connects to what we're doing here is that these guys are out in nature all the time.
Yeah.
And you must be aware of your actions and how they impact your environment. So it was a good reminder to see these films. And then here we are back, on the dirt road going to Celadon City. Soon we'll encounter some water, I'm sure. And we just had all those episodes with water in it.
Oh, yeah. They were on the island and all that kind of stuff.
But you always, it's a good reminder, these episodes too, just to not take nature for granted.
Yeah.
And how you have to do your part to conserve and make it better for those who come after you, whether just down the road or years and years later.
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, especially seeing all these movies about whales and in the ocean, it's so peaceful and slow. And this episode was not.
No.
It was very violent and very fast-paced.
There was a lot of fighting. And, Mankey gets so mad. And its attack is thrash, which is also, we find out later, Charmander has rage.
I know.
All of these things that lash out at people, which in my memory, Pokemon was much more gentle.
Yeah. This is an intense episode. But basically what happens is, so Ash comes back to his friends and they're eating Brock's jelly donuts that he makes himself. And they're all organic, freshly sourced ingredients or something, he says. And they come across this Pokemon, Mankey, which is a pig monkey Pokemon.
Right.
Which I didn't really realize, but it is very pig-like. And it snorts and all that kind of stuff. And Mankey gets a jelly donut, starts eating it, and Ash, fueled with desire to be a better Pokemon trainer and catch more Pokemon, tries to catch Mankey while it's eating.
It does not like that.
No, and it
gets very mad.
The rice ball / donut into the Pokeball.
As Ash is trying to catch it.
Right.
So it catches
the donut.
And
the rice ball.
It's a food Pokemon.
It's a food Pokemon, yes. And then Mankey gets upset. And once Mankey is angry, it's impossible to calm it down or something like that. So then it attacks Ash. And in the process, steals Ash's hat.
Which is, as we find out, his most
prized possession.
Yeah.
I think I took it for granted before this episode because he's always wearing it.
Right.
But he's wearing it for a reason because he got it from the official Pokemon League Expo. He had to send in all these, I always thought it was box tops, but he has to send in all these postcards to win. And he did win.
He wins it. And I think it's kind of amazing considering how far Pokemon has come as a franchise and a business, that there are so many Pokemon expos now. I mean, there's the Pokemon Go Day extravaganzas. There are the card game leagues that people go and the competitions that they play in, the video game competitions. There's so much that people go to compete in. And it's just kind of crazy that it really is your own Pokemon League expo, in real life.
Well, I do think there is something to having to wait for your reward, having to work towards your reward, meaning all those times that you saved up box tops from the cereal and sent them in to get some prize, or even those Smiskies that we love, you still have to get the box and open it and see what you
have to find them now because they're impossible to get a hold of.
Well, okay, I wasn't thinking about that, but that's true.
Yeah, it's
because
all
they've
part
become
of it
such
now.
a thing. But I mean more like you have to work harder, and then that thing that you get is so much more special. Like the hat and the Smiskies.
I know.
But
everybody stop buying Smiskies.
So anyway,
I need to buy them.
So Team Rocket shows up.
Yes.
And they, of course, want to get Pikachu.
They're very much more like laid back, nonchalant in this episode.
With a lot of sparkles around them when they do the motto.
But they just come in and they go, hey, you guys, like, we're here to get Pikachu.
Yeah,
There's
just show up.
No costumes, no disguise, no hole yet. And they just come over and they go, hey, we're taking Pikachu now. And the Mankey comes over to them. I don't entirely know what it does, but it goes to each one of them, Jessie, James, Meowth, and hops on them.
Goes right to their face.
Yeah.
It goes right up to their face and pops off. And then lands beside James.
Yeah, and James kicks it.
Out of the way. Just kicks it out of the way.
Kicks it out of the way. So crazy. And Mankey, before that, had kicked Ash. So Ash is on his head. Mankey's on its head. And then they basically, try to take Pikachu. And Ash goes, hey, I'm having a hat
crisis.
A hat crisis. Can you come by? Can you take Pikachu another day? And they're like, this is exactly why we're doing it now.
Right, because you're distracted.
Right.
Then Mankey gets so mad that it evolves right there into Primeape, which is so interesting with those boxing gloves on and the bangles around its wrists and ankles. And then it attacks Jessie.
Yes, it kicks her.
Gosh.
And she flies headfirst into this rock, which is horrible. But then she comes out and she goes, how dare you? You ruined my beauty.
Yeah, because she's
all this kind of stuff.
She breaks through the rock. It's horrible.
Yeah, it's really terrible.
And then Brock is thinking, well, you know what? Maybe Mankey just needs to be understood and needs someone to just, in a sense, just give it a cuddle. But he couldn't have been more wrong. And Mankey Primeape attacks Brock as well.
Yeah, it just keeps going. And James decides to come to Jessie's rescue. And because they go, well, we're supposed to be catching Pikachu. And James goes, well, Team Rocket always values beauty over, what is he? Oh, beauty before duty.
Yeah.
Which is just hilarious. They just have some great stuff in here. Anyway, so they're in a fist fight with Mankey. With Primeape. Brock tries to help Primeape with love, and it doesn't work. And so Primeape ends up chasing basically Ash continuously down this very rocky road. And Team Rocket somehow have gotten ahead of them and are digging a hole.
In the middle of the road.
Right, to catch Ash and Pikachu. And they do. Ash and Pikachu fall into the hole with them in it. And then the Primeape is up there. And so essentially Ash decides, enough is enough. I'm going to battle Primeape because I'm a good Pokemon trainer and I'm not going to let this Pokemon scare me out of doing what I want to do and
or
stop me from
what he's
achieving my
born
goals.
to do. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So Ash starts a battle with Primeape right then and there.
Right.
Primeape, who's still wearing his hat, by the way.
Yes, which you would have to be careful about the battle because you don't want the hat to be destroyed.
Well, that's the thing. So Ash brings out Squirtle first, and Squirtle does a water gun, and it goes right on the head.
Yes.
And then he brings Bulbasaur out to do some Razor Leaf.
Right.
And then, like you were saying, Charmander is the last one. And the more Charmander gets hit, the angrier it gets. And so Rage comes out, and it's even stronger.
Yeah, it blasts Primeape with its like fire hose
Flame,
of fire.
Yeah.
And fire hose of fire. How interesting. You know what I mean?
That could be a good song.
Oh,
What is that song? That's like something fire. I'm not sure, but this could be fire hose of fire.
But luckily,
We'll work on
Pikachu
that.
grabs the hat off, saves the hat, and Primeape is defeated.
Right. And the interesting thing I think about the Rage is that we find out that Charmander will, when it's in rage, it will not stop until its opponent is defeated. And that's really interesting. And I think this whole episode, even that really mimics and mirrors Ash's determination because Ash won't stop. Like in this whole episode, he will not quit trying to catch the Mankey and then Primeape. Like he won't stop, even though it's too dangerous or, Misty saying, you have to take your own path. Like you have to do this your own way. He's so determined to catch more Pokemon that it doesn't stop. And in the end, it proves fruitful.
Does work, I guess.
Yeah, it works. Which, I just think this is an interesting episode where I feel like I've learned something, but I don't necessarily know if Ash has learned it yet.
Well, his determination pays off.
Yeah.
And I think the reason he's so determined in this specific episode is because he's trying to get ahead of others. So he's propelled by the success that others have had rather than literally walking on his own path and going at his own pace.
Right.
But it pays off because he gets a Mankey.
Yeah.
A Primeape.
A Primeape.
They look so similar.
I know.
Except for the boxing gloves that I keep in my mind.
The bangles. It's the jewelry.
That's right.
Primeape has bling and
Fashion.
Mankey doesn't.
Yeah.
So, and Primeape has that little thing on its head.
Like a...
the one furrowed brow or
Yeah.
something.
It's fashionable also.
Yeah, I'm interested to know because at the end, so Ash catches the Primeape and then he lets it go on Team Rocket one last time and then brings it back. And so I wonder how, because Primeape, he lets him out of the Pokeball. Primeape beats up Team Rocket and then punches Ash in the face and then gets returns to the Pokeball. So I wonder how in battles if this Primeape is going to listen to Ash at all.
I don't know. I mean, it's kind of a Pikachu situation where you have someone who's so headstrong, a Pokemon, that it does its own thing, but also has to abide by some rules because that's the way this works. And you can't have a bunch of renegade Pokemon because how do you get anything done? But we'll have to see.
So I just wonder, because it doesn't seem like anything so far has worked to make Primeape calm down.
Yes, that's true.
But we'll have to see.
And how long will it really follow Ash along? We don't know.
I guess in that sense, what you said kind of reminds me of something because Primeape, at the end, Ash goes, Primeape has a lot to learn about teamwork and team spirit. And it is kind of interesting because at the beginning of this episode, Ash is jealous of Gary and determined to catch more Pokemon and blah, 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 and is doing his own thing. He's not listening to Brock or Misty who say, you've got to take this at your own pace. Everybody is different. And even Brock makes an interesting point of saying, it's quality over quantity. So the more diverse group of Pokemon that you have, the better equipped you will be for battle because they'll be able to help you in all different ways.
Right.
And Ash kind of doesn't really listen to that, and he just tries to get Mankey on his own, not even using Pikachu.
Mhm.
But by the end, he brings out all of his Pokemon. He brings out Bulbasaur, Squirtle, Charmander.
And then Pikachu also.
And Pikachu saves the hat. But
Yeah.
he uses his team in a better way. So even though it's still just him and not Brock and Misty
Right.
helping, he does kind of come to this conclusion that he needs to use all of his resources in order to achieve this goal.
And that is what life is like. You really can't do it alone. We all want to,
Mhm.
but you need to make sure that you assemble your team, those who you can work with, who inspire you, who support you.
Yeah.
And then you together can accomplish your goals or better succeed at getting there, at
Yeah.
least.
Yeah, and I feel like even though he doesn't necessarily listen or acknowledge Misty and Brock, he does in some way grow. I still feel like
Yeah.
he has more to learn, which I think is the
Well,
reason why there are
Yes.
still 25 more episodes in season 1.
That's it.
But it is kind of an interesting, I just feel like he has a long way to go, but he's getting there.
True.
He's figuring it out.
And ultimately you have to make this your own way, does come out at the end.
Yeah.
And then
exactly.
they have that great tableau of the three of them
my
laughing and
gosh.
running off. It's so adorable.
I know. I want that on a poster.
Yeah, it's so cute. And meaning we all have that joy. And really, you have to seek out that joy.
Mhm.
I think we take it for granted when we're with our friends and we're just laughing our heads off till your stomach hurts. And sometimes you go days and days without a good laugh like that. And that picture reminds you of how important it is to just celebrate the joy.
Definitely.
I
agree with that.
Yeah. Anyway, this was an interesting episode. There was a lot of crazy battles, meaning people getting kind of beat up.
A lot of beating
dust
up.
balls.
Yes, a lot of that. I
things.
wonder if that's the kind of interesting thing too, is that does this promote violence? Like, is anybody watching this and going, this is a good idea for me to try to do? Or
Well, it's kind of Looney Tunes like, with the way
yeah, it does feel kind of funny.
Yeah, that you can separate yourself. It's not real.
Yeah.
And a lot of it did have the dust ball clouds around it. So
Yeah,
you
that's
didn't have
true.
to see all of it. Ash did get a black eye, but you didn't see him get punched. You know
That's
what I mean?
right. Yeah, that's
So there
right.
is a separation, but I found myself kind of shocked by it.
Yeah.
Or when Jesse went flying into that rock.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, I don't think that's my cup of tea.
No.
But it was,
Professor Oak.
there is some funniness to it.
Yeah.
I like more story rather than the kind of aggression.
Yeah, I agree. I like a good dialogue, a good funny line, which I will say one of the best Jessie Team Rocket lines in this is when they're in the hole and then they're all in the hole together and Ash and Pikachu are there and Pikachu is on Ash's head and then they go, oh, Pikachu, come over here. And Jessie's like, Pikachu, why don't you want to come take a ride on my head?
It's amazing. You
So
just forget.
funny. It's so funny because it just I don't know, it just calls attention. That's just the funniest thing. It just calls attention to what's going on
Exactly.
in a way that you wouldn't think about. I just love that.
There
Come
were
take a
some
ride on my head.
Good lines for sure in this.
Definitely.
So we learned about working with your team. We
Yep.
learned about eating good organic food.
Yes, like donuts.
Sourcing ingredients. We learned about teamwork.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And taking your own path. I think
making
you
your own
have
path.
to. The thing is, you can't compare yourself to other people because you'll get stuck. You'll get stuck in a rut and you'll be just depressed because you're not doing what everybody else is doing.
To a good point is that when Ash heard that, he just said, I've got to get out there.
Yeah.
What? They've got all of this. He fell over, of course, and just like, I can't believe that. And then he just got up and said, well, I'm getting out there and I'm going to go find some more Pokemon.
Right.
So that is a good thing, to get up and get out there and make it a great week. Whatever it is that you're going for, just get out there and do it.
Don't worry what other people are doing, but use that desire to be better to motivate you to get your things done. I think we
Exactly.
all need a little push, and sometimes that can help, but you can't let it get in your head.
So this is our push to you and ourselves
Yes.
to get out of your head, get in your body, and get outside.
Yeah.
And
Get
just-
it done.
Yeah, get it done.
And have a donut.
If there's a good place nearby.
Yeah, totally. Go to a mom and pop. Go to your local donut shop.
So, I think this is a good time for the Poke Wrap Up,
where we hear from you, the Pokemon community.
We asked you to send in your favorite Pokemon memories, stories, and inspirations.
And here is this week's.
We have one special story that Vincent sent in, and we thought we would share this with you. As he wrote, I thought I'd share a little bit about my experience with Pokemon and a good friend of mine who instilled a love of Pokemon in me. When I was in the 3rd grade, I had a best friend named Mankey. He was tall and blonde and had a missing tooth from roller skating. So when he laughed, he would whistle. Kids made fun of him for it, and he was a little sensitive to being picked on. So when he ended up sitting next to me one day at lunch, we struck up a conversation. Mankey was a huge Pokemon fan. He would watch the show as it came out and dreamed about playing the video games. Mankey's favorite Pokemon was Arcanine because he believed it was secretly a legendary Pokemon. I went over to his house and we watched the first movie. That's why Mew is my favorite. We'd fight over which Pokemon were better or stronger, pretend we were Pokemon trainers and have imaginary battles, and save up our money to get the games. I really grew to love it. It was a very memorable school year, and it really blossomed my love for Pokemon, having it so tightly wound into my friendship with Mankey. Mankey's family was very poor. They were a family of 9 and all lived together in a cramped apartment. For my birthday, I asked my parents if they would get me both Pokemon Sapphire and Ruby so I could give one to Mankey. I was so excited to play it with him. I gave it to him at my party and he was thrilled. He and I sat and played it until our eyes started to melt. But he wouldn't let me see his screen. It was a secret, he said. The next day, he didn't show up at school. I thought he was sick, so I called the house, and there was no answer. There were rumors flying about that made my stomach twist in knots until finally, the next week, our teacher told us what had happened. He had been hit by a car, roller skating in the road. I was heartbroken. As quickly as I had gained him, I had lost him. I cried alone in my room for years and refused to play or interact with Pokemon because it hurt too much. My Sapphire cartridge just collected dust. Losing a friend I was so close with at such a tender age was devastating. It made me question why I was alive and he wasn't. Then, when I was in high school, I got a package in the mail. It was from Mankey's mom. I opened it, and it was Pokemon Ruby, Mankey's copy. I didn't have my Game Boy Advance anymore, so I had to buy one online. When I did, I popped it in. Immediately, I thought I'd understood why he'd been so secretive all those years ago. He'd picked the girl character and didn't want me to laugh at him. But then, as I met up with the rival boy in-game, I found out the truth. He named the rival, Vinny, after me. He wanted to play his first Pokemon game with me by his side, so he picked the girl character, so I could be there with him as the boy. Even in death, and even after all these years, he still wanted to be my friend. And I am so humbled that I had a friend like him. So now, I am a big Pokemon fan, and every time I play the game, I name my rival Mankey. I think he'd be happy. Thank you, Vincent, so much for sending that beautiful story in. And we want to hear from all of you.
Email us a short recording or write to us at trainersguidepod@gmail.com.
And try to keep it short if you can. Otherwise, we'll read the whole thing.
Oh, and please don't forget to include your first name and where you're from.
thank you all for listening and sharing. It means so much to all of us. And I guess that about wraps up today's episode of
The Trainer's Guide.
And, as they say, to be continued. We hope that you continue to join us on this journey that is The Trainer's Guide.
As you know, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Wherever you're listening now.
And if you subscribe, comment, and rate the podcast, it helps others find the show and keeps us on the air.
Thank you so much in advance for your generosity and all of your amazing support.
Trainer's Guide is a production of Boom Integrated.
We are co-executive producing this along with
the amazing Adrian Glover
and the incomparable Robin Lai. I'm your host, Veronica Taylor.
And I'm your host, Rena Taylor.
And this has been The Trainer's Guide. We'll see you out there on the road.